Hi, my name is Allison, and we are from Pima Community College in the community.
Eliza, nice to meet you.
And we're very excited to work with you.
I'm Valerie, and this is Tong, and we're from the University High School.
Welcome.
Great. Well, would you like us to start with just describing what sort of program idea we have for you, and then see what needs you need?
That's great.
And then see how we can match that up?
Perfect.
All right. Well, we were thinking about a program for about 2 weeks in length for your students. So these students would be getting into the community. We have a variety of activities planned, and those would include nature hikes, visits to museums, going to the market, and also water activities, so scuba diving, kind of being able to see the ecological things Mexico has to offer. And one of our highlights is basically having a moving classroom. So students would be getting information about the city and the community by going out into the community, seeing historical sites, seeing cultural sites, and learning information at those specific sites. So, do you want to talk about homestays?
Yeah, another idea that we've had is, since this particular group of students is trying to get to know the culture more of Mexico, we were thinking of doing homestays. And we've been in this community for a long time, so we know the people that do the homestays very well. And we also would do a pre-screening where we'd have your students fill out an evaluation form, and we would make sure to try to match your students with the homestay families that we already have established. Sort of a basic idea, and again, we can be somewhat flexible with this, is to maybe do 5 days of a homestay in the city, and then do 4 or 5 days sort of a beach in cabins. They wouldn't be with the homestays at this point, they would be living together in cabins. This is when we do the hiking and scuba diving, and then come back to the same homestays for the last 4 or 5 days.
That sounds really incredible. I actually hadn't considered homestays at all. What I'm wondering is, this is a semester-long program, and we're looking for kind of a survey of Latin America, the Caribbean, Central America, and of course including Mexico. But we're wondering about the short-term programs. You know, I've read a lot about the problems with the short-term program and students really not getting enough of an experience, sort of just getting acclimated, and then it's time to go home, and maybe if they'd stayed longer they could have gotten a little more in depth with the culture, or, you know, in a homestay situation it's sort of superficial to be there for 5 days. Everything is, you know, pretty even flow, and things really start to kind of sink in with them after a little longer. So I'm kind of wondering what your feelings are. What are the benefits of the short term that maybe I'm not seeing?
Well, number one, for a high school program, I think we were envisioning that short term would be better scheduling-wise. Now again, if that isn't correct, we can go back to the drawing boards as far as how much time you want to be spending in this experience. But I also think there's something to be said for what happens when you leave after 2 weeks and you're reflecting on your experience. So even though during that 2 weeks it might seem superficial, I think the changes are long-lasting. So, you know, you have your 2 weeks, you have your homestays, and maybe when you take it back to the classroom for your GATE program, that's when you can really start to process what the students actually went through.
Okay, and going along with that too, we're looking for a balance. So we want to have a structured program so academically the students are being challenged, and we're providing them with a lot of opportunities to really get in depth about the history and the culture, and we're looking for you know, what the history is, but then all the way up to present day, what's going on now, what are the changes, that kind of thing. How do you balance within your program downtime or free time and the structured time?
Within, most of the program is pretty structured. Since they're high school students, we just have a variety of activities. So whether the activity is sort of doing the moving classroom, which we discussed earlier, which is more academic, or just going to the market and having market time where they can go experience some local culture through food, or through being able to buy things. That's an option for them. And in terms of going from the historical mode to the current mode. What we were thinking for your program, kind of a general model, is starting the first 5 days when they're in the homestay in the community, in the city, learning about the social and cultural historical elements, and then when they're on the beach site and doing hiking and that sort of activity, learning more about the ecological elements. And then when they come back for the last 4 or 5 days, going more to the political and economic situations and how that's been influenced by some of the history, some of the culture that they've already experienced, and the ecological situations that they've seen.
So do we just stay in Mexico, or is there a possibility to travel elsewhere? As I mentioned, we're looking for breadth. We're going to be studying multiple cultures, and we're trying to include Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean. You know, we have some flexibility, but we're just wondering, are you just looking to primarily keep the students in this one area?
Our connections are primarily in this area, and so in order to give the best program we can provide, we want to give you the best resources we have, and that is within Mexico. And especially since it's a short term, you can go into more depth in a short amount of time if you're staying in one location, rather than hopping from one location to another and just sort of like skimming the surface. So it's kind of more what you're looking for, but we figured since your students are at a gifted level and have a lot of intellectual capability, that it might be better for them to go in depth in one situation.
Tom, what do you think? Do you have any questions?
Sound good, but I mean they are intellectually gifted, but then they are very new to the different culture, and then I'm worried about how you plan for the homestay. You know, like jump into other culture and stay with those. That sounds really good, but how you adapt the culture and make sure students are not caught up in a culture shock and things like that.
Well, we have been doing it for a while, so we're definitely going to be there for you and your students if anything comes up. Again, we'd like to do some sort of evaluation needs assessment prior to the trip, so we can get an idea of language level. We can get an idea of what sort of accommodation they feel they need during this 2-week time. But yeah, if anything comes up, we would hope that your staff or your students could certainly come to us. We have been doing it for a while, so.
Right, and as Eliza mentioned before, a lot of these host families are families we've worked with in the past. So they're families we know that have supported students in the past, and students have come back with a good experience from having time with those families.
What sort of reactions have the students, high school age students, had to staying with homestay families? What have their experiences been?
Students generally are a little apprehensive about homestays, and that's pretty natural. Staying with a new family at a young age is a little intimidating. But after the experience, that's generally how students get most cultural exchange and really get into the culture and see how life is working at the very basic level within the community. And it has always been a positive experience.
What kinds of things do they do with the homestay families?
The homestay families, it can be anything, just sitting around watching some television, sharing some traditional food. Some host families like to take their students to visit all other relatives in the community to get more of an experience. Sometimes parties are had, and sometimes the host families will take the students out to the market just to share what is their favorite thing in the community to do.
That sounds great. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds great. So like you mentioned about ecological and culture and then economics and then so any dimension from the human politics that we supposed to explore for our students?
Yes, we would do politics towards the end of the homestay just so they can kind of gather the information that they've already used and see how that is all framed within a political light. So everywhere from ecological to historical and how that's influencing past politics and current politics.